one of the things that those of you that are either about to, or Priscilla asked this morning, good morning everyone, by the way. Priscilla asked this morning that she was ready to submit her Earthworks project, but the submission button wasn't there, but it is now. And let's see, I commented a little bit this morning on, I don't know if you have done more since what you submitted on the draft page. Did you? Priscilla?
Yeah, I've done a lot more.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just made a little comment this morning, so I'm looking forward to see what that is. Basically, I'm leading up to the idea, though, that I will probably comment on both your projects, everyone's, your totem, as well as your Earthworks, right up until the last day of the semester. With the idea to, you know, my aim here is not to necessarily, I don't know, critically talk about in a bad way what you've done, but to try and push you as much as I can. And you can be the judge of how that works for you with your overall schedule and everything, but also it might be something that hopefully the comment that I give is meant to make you think of sculpture in other ways, or space, or form in space, and see how that, how we look at it. You know, ultimately, as we leave this course, I do want us to all go away with some understanding, appreciation of how not only sculpture works that people make, but just how we interact with our three-dimensional environment, with you know, things around us, the space that we live in and move about in. And so my comments on your projects right up until the end are mostly based on that, you know, trying to challenge you as much as I can. I think when I see your ideas, you know, that provoke an idea in me, and I kind of respond back and forth. If we were together in class, of course, we could have more of a conversation about it. But that's what that's about. So I will probably just still put comments on there. It's not meant to mean that, oh, yours isn't done, you can't turn it in yet. That isn't what that's about. It's just basically me responding back to what you're showing. Okay. And then of course you certainly can modify it further if you'd like. Okay. All right, let's see. Priscilla, did you just now try to upload it? Priscilla, did you just now try to upload it? Did I lose you? Okay, I'm not sure what's going on there. Oh, okay. Do the rest of you hear me okay? Okay. All right. So let's see. I think I do want to just go to questions. If you want to share anything, an image with me or anything like that, we can go there. But mostly I just want to get a sense of where you guys are individually on this project, and yeah, let's talk about it that way. So I think this time I'm going to just call on you and maybe have you update us, okay? So Parker, can you start us?
Yeah, of course. I still haven't gotten too far. I've still been kind of thinking of the general idea of what I want to like have it mean, you know, because last time I had an idea and you said to kind of think about the meaning of it a little bit more before I kind of get into how I want to make it.
Okay.
So
excuse me one second. I'm going to close the door here. Okay. Okay, that might be a little bit better. Sorry, go ahead.
So I'm still not too sure about the idea I want to give off, and I'm not too sure about what I want to make either. So I'm still kind of at the pretty early stages. I've just been really busy with a bunch of other finals and stuff.
Sure, sure. So why don't you tell me what some of your options are, or some of the thoughts?
So I have a small backyard and some plants and stuff, maybe some weeds that I can pull up. I have some fresh dirt, some older dirt and stuff. So I was thinking maybe going like the transitioning from what would be underground to kind of like above ground and then the plants. Um, it's still a very general idea.
So like that cutaway geological
Yeah,
version, that,
exactly.
that kind of idea? Okay. Um, I like the fact that you said new dirt and old dirt. I like that a lot,
All
apparently.
right, well, fresher and stale dirt, I
I,
guess.
I'd stay with new dirt and old dirt. That's great. Um, so there's a couple of ways that you can create this. One would be, think like you're making a miniature mountain, where you kind of have, and you could make it a very specific cone kind of mountain, or it could be a little looser, but it'd be kind of interesting to see if it had a real specific shape, I suppose, like a cone. But you could certainly layer things that way. And do you have any gravel or leaves or things like that?
I have a lot of leaves because I have just a wall just full of vines and leaves and like morning flowers, but I don't have any gravel, but I was thinking I should either do like a circle or like a triangle. I was thinking one of the two.
So, so if you make that kind of shape, are you thinking going up or just flat on the ground?
I'd think about going up.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, flat on the ground. Flat on the ground.
okay. Um, well, I guess that's why I was suggesting the cone, because then you can go up in the air.
Oh, okay. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Um, if you, you could essentially cast the dirt. If you, it'd be kind of like you're making adobe to a certain degree. In other words, you'd have to make a frame. If you have wood, if you could make, or if just there's a box, you know, but then you could make mud of different kinds of mixtures, different recipes of the dirt, leaves, whatever you have. And of course, it's going to create different colors and different textures. And you can create layers in there that then when that dries, then you put another layer and so forth. So, and then when you're all done, it's all dry, you can just take the box away. If it's a cardboard box, it might even be easier because you could just cut with a knife and peel it off, as opposed to trying to lifting it up and maybe some of the dirt would fall away. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, I actually like the conical idea. It gives it more, it makes it more interesting from around all angles, like you've been saying around the whole semester. So
Okay.
a little bit more difficult to do too. So it'd keep me a little bit more entertained.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. If it were me, I would experiment first. This all sounds well and good. Make adobe, make the mud, put something around it, it stays up. But I would still experiment and see, because I would imagine that let's say a more sandy soil that has more sand in it. Well, now that I'm saying it, I'm going to change my mind. I was going to say that perhaps when that dries, yeah, I still say this. When it dries, that if it's got a lot of sand in it, it might not stay together in one shape. When it's wet, the sand will pack just great. But we know this from like a sand castle, right? If it doesn't say wet, it just starts to fall down. So that would be true of any kind of soil that has a lot of sand in it. The more clay that's in it, the more it's going to stay together. And you don't necessarily have a whole lot of choice on that. You've got what you have, but you can mix up different things with it. So any organic material that's with it is going to help make it more sticky. So let's say the leaves, let's say I have a bunch of green leaves, and I kind of tear them up or cut them up with garden shears or something to make smaller bits and mix that in with it. That's going to act like a kind of like a glue as it's wet. And then if I have other leaves that are, let's say, really dry or from a different kind of plant, then the coloring is going to be different, but it's going to act in the same way. That organic material will help it stick together. And then, of course, you can do layers of nothing but organic material. So I've got dirt, I've got 2 inches of leaves, then I've got a different, so you're making a layer cake. In fact, you could even think of something like that. You're making a cake. Now it's a round form, and you make a cake, and then on top of it, it's got candles and the whole 9 yards. So we're talking about, or we just passed Earth Day, but the idea, and it was the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So it could be that kind of approach on the storytelling side. And I actually need to come back to that for all of us today and emphasize this storytelling symbolic side of things. So in the way I'm describing this particular birthday cake thing, it's a very literal story. It doesn't have to be that at all. You might, it sounds okay, but I really was more interested in the geological story. So,
Okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just have one concern. You said it's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. I think you're wrong. The Earth is a lot older than 50 years.
Oh, yeah. The Earth is a lot older than, the 50th anniversary of Earth Day.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I like your ideas. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Okay, you're welcome. Jason, how are you doing?
I kind of started on something. So I told you about the logs I had in the backyard.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they weren't logs. They're more like really big, like branches.
Okay.
But I want to like make like a campfire kind of.
Okay.
Because I used to like go camping a lot.
Uh-huh.
And so I just want to make something like a campfire. So kind of made this.
Okay. Okay.
And it kind of has like bricks around it, like paver rocks around it, and then like stack the logs on top. And then that's it. That's all I got.
Okay. So I think making something where fire is an aspect of this could be very interesting. You could actually, have a campfire, bonfire, backyard, barbecue fire with this if you'd like. What I'm going to encourage you to do, though, is look at other forms of building a campfire. Okay, so there's some very interesting ones out there. Do you ever watch the YouTube things of, what's he call himself, the crazy Russian hacker?
I've heard of him, but no, I don't.
Check him out. Check him out. And he has some, but the other ones, there's a Swedish, I'm pretty sure it's Swedish, a Swedish log fire. What do they call it? I think it's a log fire. But there's a variety of ones where the logs are standing upright, and there's variations of this where the fire burns from the inside out of the log, and it's coming out of slits in it. It's almost like a lantern.
Right.
But I think if you do some little research on different types of log fires, campfires, that kind of thing, cooking fires. That's one thing about this log. Single log standing up that way, you can cook, like you were talking about camping, a pot sitting directly on the log upright, and the fire is burning out of the inside of it. It's very cool.
Okay.
And anyway, there's a variety of those out there, and I think you should check that out and then see what variations you might come up with here. I like the idea of working with another natural element like fire. I really want to encourage you to go more than make a, I want you to go beyond making a campfire fire in the way that we kind of are used to doing it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So think of it a little more, think of what you have right now as a starting point,
Right.
because there's some very good parts there with that starting point, because you're considering the functional aspect of it, that you're used to as a person who camps. You know, you're used to finding the right wood that's going to burn well and not be smoky. All those aspects, right, of how you stack it so it gets the oxygen as well as the heat and all of those things. So take that idea and think almost like an engineer, as well as a sculptor. And you can use as part of inspiration for, I guess what I'm talking about here is, there are a variety of them out there, especially right now, because they're erring on the side of using the fuel efficiently. So you don't need a bunch of logs to get a really hot fire and that kind of thing. So, and then again, come back to the storytelling aspect. What is the story that you're telling? What is fire is a powerful symbol. And the reference to a campfire can also, or you know, a cooking fire, or however you want to think of that, or just camping in general, or hiking. All of those are really, really good inspiration for story. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I'll try.
Okay. Clarissa, where are you now on this?
So I've still been drying peels just to see what I can use them for, and then I have a picture I'm trying to pull up.
Great.
I made this. It's like, ooh, okay. It's like woven,
Yes.
and
Love
I made it out of palm tree leaves, and then I made other walls for my fairy house, and then I tried to go put it in the ground, and I hated it a lot. Really did not like it at all.
What do you
Took me
mean?
a really
What do you
long time
mean
to
by
weave
putting it in the ground?
because I made the sticks that I was weaving it across longer so that
Yeah,
they could to the ground, so I could make like walls
Oh,
for a fairy house, and I hated it. And also, palm trees dry out a significant amount,
mhm.
and the space reduces by a lot. So now it's a lot more squat and like tighter, and I hate it. But I did that, and it took a really long time. So I'm not sure if I'll proceed that way because it was extremely time consuming, and I feel not enough reward or payoff for it. And yeah, now I don't know, but I've been walking around and like looking at all the plants and stuff, and we have like so many types of plants around here. There's like bamboo and fig tree leaves, and there's the palm leaves. There's like lemon tree leaves. There's a bunch of different leaves that all look really different, and I was kind of walking around seeing like what was around, and there are at least like 15 different kinds of plants with really distinct leaves here. So I was debating just getting the leaves and trying to do some sort of like spiral, like large to small effect with those if I give up on the fairy house, because it made me really mad. So yeah.
well, I can certainly understand the idea of when you have a vision of something going in a particular way and it doesn't necessarily go that way. That can be disappointing, especially if you spent some time on it and you were excited about your initial idea. I have to say, though, that I want to encourage you to have faith in the process, and that the stage that you're perhaps with it right now is look at what you learned from it, what you didn't like about it, and what perhaps still has a lot of potential. I think that, so my initial reaction to what you showed me there is really positive. I think that that idea of the weaving with those palm leaves has really, really a lot of potential. Can it make the fairy house in the way you were initially thinking? I don't know. Maybe still, yes. But maybe it's a fairy house in a different way also. So what I mean by that is, let's say, well, the fairy house initially was it sounded like you were thinking, it sounded like you stood it in the ground.
Yeah, so oh, I'm muted. No, not cool. Yeah, so I made 3 different walls and I made it so there's a little bit extended twig, and
Okay.
the twigs that are the reinforcement between the leaves are also pieces of bamboo that I cut. So they're sturdy-ish. I took the really thin parts of it, and then I try to stab those in the ground, try to set them up nicely, like in this one part by these trees that looked really good because it has like moss growing and then it has like
Yeah.
other small plants and it looked really good there. So then I tried and then I kind of hated how it looked there and I was like, well, that's not going to work. So I'm just kind of thinking about, I still like the one woven piece. I don't like the other ones as much because I did a different method. I just ended up putting slits all along the palm leaf. I cut a big square and I did like an accordion fold, and then I cut slits so I could insert the stick to make it more efficient and a better wall. But because it was so I don't know, because it was just one large component, it dried and made a really significant difference in the shape of the structure. So I didn't like that. And then when I put them down, they also just looked too simplistic, and I was like, well, that's not any good. So yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like the location you originally were trying there with the moss sounds like a good idea to me. I think I'd still try working there. But I have two thoughts. One is there are, I know you're not building a fence, excuse me, but woven stick fences, especially for gardens around the world, they're gorgeous. They're really cool. So you might take a look at some of those. I know that's not what you're making, but you might get some inspiration for how they are putting things together. So for example, Asian gardens traditionally use a lot of those woven stick fences, but we also find them in other countries in Europe. And they go back a long way, of course. The medieval English gardens, you know, had them. And we still see them today a lot. They take a lot of time to make. And that's perhaps why we don't see them as much today. We'd rather go to a store and buy a fence. But the idea behind them is related to what you're doing in terms of the technique. I think you might, I'd suggest looking there, I guess, also to see if you see anything worth borrowing in terms of technique or how to go further with what you've already started. The other is that, well, maybe it doesn't stick in the ground. Maybe it hangs. Maybe it attaches to a tree. You know, maybe it's in a little cave of rocks or something. I don't know. Although I do like the way you described the location with the moss. That sounded like an interesting location.
I tried some of the other like possible techniques because there's a lot of really strong leaves. So I was kind of scoping out where I could put it in a tree. But at the same time, it's really difficult because we don't have any salt. Like I can't really use like a staple or some sort of adhesive or something else.
No.
So it becomes really difficult to do that, especially like because one idea is because it's so flat is sometimes there's like those hanging awnings that have like the support like chains that kind of help it be like this, and then the chains go in this direction.
Yeah.
There's nothing I could really attach to it that I could then attach to a tree. I kind of tried it, but it doesn't work because of the kind of tree. So there's not even a way to like stick it into the tree because we can't use any kind of like man-made grips. So it becomes really, really difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying that there might be other ways. And I do like the fact that you're looking for some examples of how things hang, like an awning or something. Well, maybe the awning doesn't work because you don't want to hammer into the tree, for example. But at any rate, I'm saying keep that thought alive yet. Keep brainstorming with it. let's see. The other thought I meant was, oh, you mentioned other leaves. And you also mentioned that one of the issues is that as the leaves that you have been using dry out, they shrink and the space changes, and it's not doing it in a way that works that you like. So and you said you also had fig trees, and we happen to have a giant fig tree, and I love the leaves, but once they're on the ground for just a couple days, they're pretty dried out.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So and I think that that's true for most large leaves, even more so than the smaller ones. So if you do decide to go with leaves because of their shape and that kind of thing, I think you might miss them a lot, keep them moist. But on the other hand, it's going to be a pretty temporary piece because the leaves are all going to dry out pretty quickly. Let's see. I want to come back to the weaving idea, especially with the palm leaves. I think that's, from what you've told me so far, I think that has the most potential. It starts out flat. Maybe it can curve. Maybe it can twist to create a different kind of form with it. I know that's what it was. So as a fairy house, be open to the fact that maybe the fairy doesn't have a house that looks like a miniature version of one of our houses. Maybe it's a different kind of enclosure or something that has an opening in it. So that could be more cylindrical. It could be more of a dome. Who knows? But see what happens with, you have that one smaller piece that you have, and now that it's dried out a little bit, it might not be as flexible, but I might still be able to play with that. Or if you have another one, I know it takes time to make, so I don't.
They're not actually as flexible as you'd assume, because I thought they'd be more flexible too, so that I could kind of, there's no need to have all the four walls if you can just kind of bend it.
Mhm.
But the way that palm trees are set up, because they're so structural and they have like that accordion shape, the
Mhm.
second that you kind of even move them, there starts to be cracks between the fibers. So
Mhm.
they're actually not very flexible because they have that strong pleating on them, because it's really, really developed palm leaves. It's not like fresh leaves that might be more malleable. So I did try to bend them and it was pretty hard. So
Yeah.
I kind of was like, okay, well, that's not going to work.
Well, it's kind of like they will bend one direction but not the other. So the direction that the pleats are going, they're not going to bend. If my fingers are the pleats, then they're not going to bend this way, but they will bend the opposite way. So bending, folding along the same lines that the direction the pleats are going. So, again, I appreciate all the work and time and thought that you've put into it. And what I'm trying to do is encourage you to stick with the weaving idea. See, you have a good idea of what doesn't work. But I think that there's some ways that still can work with that. So I'm okay. So hang in there with that. I think you've got a good idea. I think you've got a good source of material. So keep those thoughts alive. Okay. Okay. Priscilla, did you have anything else you wanted to ask about? Or?
I can show you how mine looks. I just uploaded it to Canvas, but I can show you how it looks here on my phone somewhere.
Well, if you just uploaded it to Canvas, I could share it and we could all look at it. You want to do that?
Sure.
Okay, let's try that. Okay. So do you, see if I can do, no, I can't do that. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to tell us about?
You could, can you go to like the last two
The last two.
or last, pick one of them.
Ah, this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you
Uh,
tell us first what you're doing, what you're thinking, that kind of thing.
I was sort of inspired. Okay, at first I didn't know what to do. I thought I was gonna like make little tiny sculptures out of weed or like leaves, but then that it didn't really end up working. And I thought I was gonna use a dead tree to like stack some sticks and make like a tree house kind of thing, but that didn't really work. And then I have a lot of like, my garden's a mess and there's a lot of weed lying around, so I thought it was like it would be useful if I just like pull some of them to and like make something out of it. So um I just at first I started braiding it, and then and I was like, oh, okay, I'll make a circle, sort of like what you sort of showed us with
Mhm.
the displays on the beaches.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I was like, okay, I'll just make something look like or that represents like balance.
The yin
So
yang.
yeah, and then the little balls inside the smaller circle, uh, those were just like I mixed water plus like fallen petals together and just formed into a ball.
Oh, really? I thought
Yeah,
that was a whole flower bloom. But you brought those together yourself and made them into, huh, interesting.
yeah. And then that's basically it. I think if you go to that first photo, you could see the up close photo of the little ball.
The very first one.
And, yeah.
Oh, I see. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how big is this?
Uh, uh,
Like the main circle?
it's pretty big. I had to like, I mean, I don't really know how to explain it.
Well,
It's like, it could be as wide as a picnic bench.
oh, so like this could be if this was up in the air, the main circle would be like a picnic table?
No, the main circle would be like probably half the size
Oh,
of
okay.
that.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because, we talked very, very briefly about this idea of monumentality and about sculpture in general, where when we see something in a picture, and we see this all the time anyway, it's not just about sculpture, but
Mhm.
when we kind of eliminate other things that we know how big they are, then the size of the thing that we are focusing on, it could be any size. This could be 2 inches, or it could be, 6 feet. And I get a little bit of a sense because I can see the post that's up in the upper right-hand corner, but that's my only real clue. And so that's why I was just curious.
Oh,
Um, I think there's a number of really interesting things here going on. I like the approach that you took with the materials that you had to work with. I like the idea that well, I mean, you have both flowers, but you also, you said weeds, grasses that you were going to cut or pull anyway, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So I like that conservation kind of idea approach to things. I like the overall symbol of the yin yang What are the 4 circles and the 4 groups of flowers on the outside? What are they about?
Just balance, because like it's even on all sides, sort of.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And what's your overall concept message?
Just like, I feel like I had an idea of, I don't remember. I definitely had something in my head, but I just can't remember at the moment. Because
Okay.
I made this like uh the beginning of last week, or like towards the beginning of the last week, and I spent 2 days on this
Mhm.
just because I needed to like get ahead of all my assignments.
Yes, yes, yes. So one of the reasons I'm asking this question is because you have this little paper that you also need to turn in for me.
Yeah.
And that paper is going to talk about materials and process, but it also needs to, as a major requirement for the assignment, is
Hmm.
talk about what is the story, the symbolism, that aspect. I don't want you to necessarily make things up.
Yeah,
But
I'm pretty sure it had to do with quarantine, but I don't remember at the moment.
yeah, and that can be this happens all the time. We have
Yeah.
an inspiration of something, let's say quarantine, and that gets us kick-started.
Yeah.
And then we do some discovery because we're working with materials, and we're playing around.
Hmm.
And so we start to discover something. So this is something that's true for so many different disciplines. Again, not just sculpture, not just art. But in art, we see it in a visual way. And so in the process of making the thing, it is also a process of discovery. When we learn, again, in just about any discipline, by reflecting on the process that we were just engaged in, or perhaps are now stepping back from and then going to re-engage with it. So in this case, because you have other things that are also a part of your schedule and your major, you quite possibly wouldn't be able to return to this even if you wanted to, or not anytime soon, because you have other commitments. So I get that. But what I do think is important is now, if that original concept of quarantine um, perhaps isn't communicated real strongly here, but other things are suggested perhaps a little bit more readily, because you've picked a symbol, the yin yang kind of symbol that most people, at least on some level, understand what that is. And so I think playing off of that, and then you've added other things that, because we read the middle part as a symbol, it's telling us that, well, the other parts must also have symbolic meaning as well, but I don't know what those are. So now, as a viewer, my curiosity is piqued. I'm kind of, oh, I know what the yin yang is, but I don't know what these other symbols are, but they must have some kind of meaning. I wonder what that could be. So that kind of goes through our head as a viewer. So what I want you to do is, you said the balance, the overall balance of the piece. We could go back, and I could say, well, wasn't it balanced when it was just the yin yang?
In the
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
In the beginning, okay, I remember, but like in the beginning, I remember you mentioned like the 4 elements of Earth.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know it doesn't really show it here, but it's like it has 4 circles.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like you could think of it as like 4 different sections, or 4 different things that sort of like balance the Earth. And uh, yeah, I think that's what I had in mind.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It's just going through that thought process, that reflective process of
Yeah.
what you did, and then I would also throw out these other things. So from what you just said, I think that's a really good idea. Balance, the Earth in balance.
Hmm.
So if these are 4 different things, if they're the 4 natural elements, should each of those outside shapes be circles? Or could one be wavy lines and one's a triangle and, you know, that kind of thing? Okay, see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
so by reflecting back on what the story is being suggested, then the next step in that process of you re-engaged with it would be, can I make that message or story even stronger by adding something, taking something away, changing something slightly? That's you know, stepping back into it actively, stepping back and seeing what's going on, you know, this back and forth idea. And again, I don't think this is simply just about art. I think this is about almost anything that we might undertake. It just happens to be in art. We're looking at it as a visual thing. If we were looking at it from mathematics and we're trying to work out a proof of something, I guess that's visual too, but it's you know, we're stepping back and looking at it in a slightly different way. But it's engaging, stepping back, re-engaging, back and forth. I think overall you've got a really nice piece here. I like that. Well, I don't need to go through all the things. I will comment on it later. Yeah, I guess what I would do, if you can take, I think it would be good if you can possibly take a picture of it almost straight down. Maybe you're like on a, if you have a standing on a chair on a ladder where you can be up above it and down and straight above it. That might be an interesting image of it, you know, because it's not going to last. So you should take a variety of images, close up, far away, straight ahead, that kind of thing. You know, I think that would be good to do. You've got some variety here already, but that would be my only other suggestion.
Okay.
Okay.
The only thing is that someone already stepped on my piece.
You're kidding. Who stepped on
Yeah,
it?
I don't know.
Somebody just stepped on it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Was it like somebody in your family?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh boy, there's no telling what family's going to do, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I get it. I get it. All right. Well, thanks for sharing this with us today. Hopefully, that's helpful for everybody to a certain degree.
Mm.
Let's see. I'm going to make this about that. All right. Let's see here. Oh, I went switch views. Brianna, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Last week I had like an idea after looking at the student art of being like the inverse of like the spiral down, but going outside and looking at what I have a lot of cinder blocks.
Yeah.
And so like my mom's like, well, do something we can keep in our backyard, right? Because yeah. So what I was thinking was, and I was gonna send you an email, but I was like, I'll just ask on Monday, was if I arrange those cinder blocks and like make it like a planter, would that be considered earthworks?
I'd have to say no. Because the
No? Okay.
yeah, I like the basic idea of working with the cinder blocks because you have all of those. Yeah, we've got to work with the natural material on this one.
Is cinder blocks not natural? That's what I meant, huh?
Yeah, and they've already been, like, someone has already made them into a you know, it's a manufactured thing.
Okay, then I'll probably go back to my ideas of using pebbles because I have a lot of like small stones in my front yard, but I also have bark in my backyard, so maybe I can do something with that.
Do you know what kind of trees the bark's from?
I don't.
Is it
It's
long?
dark.
Is it long and stringy or little chunks or what is it?
Little chunks.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I don't know. It's not like one better than the other. It's just I was trying to picture.
Yeah.
I think working with those. Um, um, I'm still trying to think if there's any way you could use the cinder block in this.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. If anything, I might, because my mom has soil, and I can use soil and dirt to like make like layers, like a cone, but not like perfectly like circular and flat, but like levels, and then put things on each of those levels, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I'm also thinking that maybe the cinder block you could use to make a form
Mm-hmm.
that you put the other materials in that, you know, we were talking about the layering idea early on. I don't know if you joined us at that point. But then you'd be using the cinder block to make a form thing set up, and then you take the cinder blocks away. I suppose that would be possible.
Okay. I think I know what I'm kind of confused, but yeah.
Oh, well, let me try that again. So like if we were going to cast something, and in this case, if we're casting dirt, pretty much the only way you can make the dirt castable is adding water,
Yeah.
right? So we're essentially making a mud, and then the mud is, depending upon the kind of dirt, if it's got more clay in it, then by itself, it's going to pretty much stay the shape.
Yeah.
Right? But if it's more sandy soil, then that's not true. And if it's potting soil, then it doesn't have a lot of clay in it, you know? So what you can do, though, is add organic material like leaves, perhaps bark if it's smaller pieces,
Mm-hmm.
you know, compost. And in that way, that can be compacted into a form.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So do you guys compost?
Yeah, we have a lot of. Oh wait, what do you mean?
Oh, well, it sounded like you guys did a lot of gardening, so that's why I thought you might compost. So compost would be taking organic material, like stuff from, you know, like the kitchen, you know, that you
Oh
cut.
no, we just throw it away.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just curious because if you had that, then that material is also very compactable, and geez, just when it's composting, it makes its own forms. So that's a little bit different direction than what you were suggesting, and you don't necessarily have to go there. I was just trying to think of how you might make use of the cinder block. You can't make use of the
Yeah.
cinder block in the end piece, but you might in the process of creating whatever you create.
Mm-hmm. I'll have to think about it. I'm just because this is like the last week. I'm kind of like but
Yeah, we're down to the home run, home stretch.
yeah. But I will figure out something. I'm not sure yet, but I shall figure it out.
Okay, I think you have some good materials to work with,
Mm-hmm.
and sounds like you have a good consultant in your mom to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, something she wants to keep instead of just be like my sculpture, she doesn't want to keep it.
Oh.
But yeah.
Okay. Stephen? Good morning.
Yeah, so my plan was I haven't really started yet because of finals and everything. But my plan was to like make a nest. Because I have a lot of sticks, and then I'll probably arrange like some palm leaves and like different other leaves around it. And also put the nest on top of some rocks. I was trying making like a kind of like a tower of rocks.
Okay. Did you look up, I thought we talked about this, but I could be wrong. An osprey nest?
Osprey. No, I haven't looked that up.
Check that out. Check some pictures out. OSPREY. An osprey. And their nests are quite impressive.
Okay.
And you might see even pictures of some of them that are on top of telephone poles and things. Or, yeah, I mean, they're just very, very impressive nests.
Yeah, okay, I see it.
Okay. Think of what, again, I need to talk about the symbolic nature or storytelling part of it a little bit. So think, well, what is a nest? You know, it's a home. It's in a home for a baby.
Hmm.
You know, the first weeks, or depending upon the bird, the first weeks or perhaps months of life. So that's a very meaningful purpose, and it gets made by the parents in a very painstaking process of gathering individual sticks, twigs together and putting it together, and all that business, you know, that they go through. And then it's gone. And it's got a lot of meaning behind it. So if you're going to make something that resembles or symbolizes a nest, think of the story that that a nest suggests, okay, and how you can play off of that, perhaps. Okay, you know, is
Okay.
it a nest for the earth, or is it a nest for a person, or is it a nest for a bird? You know, what is it? What can it suggest in a storytelling way? If you were writing a book about something and you titled it The Nest because it had a metaphorical meaning, you know, that's one way to think of symbols metaphorically.
Okay.
Okay. Um, okay. Well, let me sum up a little bit for us here. Yes, we are in finals. This is your final. So you do need to you need to balance everything. But for all of us, don't um, don't cut yourself short on this either. Um, that's just a general thought. Since you're all here today, I'm sure you're conscious and serious about all your subjects, so I really don't need to be talking about that particular point. I do want to remind us, though, of what you want to make sure you have to finish up the semester. So the the clay project, if we go all the way back to the clay project, I think all of you, I have pictures. I think that's true. I'm trying to picture in my head now. I think I have pictures of all your clay ones. If you hadn't and had been on, because there are some of your classmates that weren't able to, they weren't quite as far along, and so and they weren't able to take their clay home. So I suggested to them that they could do a substitute project of any kind for that one, but I don't. Remind me, is there anybody in that situation here? Stephen? Yeah, okay, so you can do any other sculptural project, any process, any materials that you want, but we do need to have that assignment or something to replace that assignment, okay? So I want to remind us of that. The other thing is, in addition to, because we can't get together and talk about this in any meaningful way, I've asked you to each do a summary paper. So for the last two projects. So the only thing that kind of relates to that is our comparison paper that we did after the first two projects. Now, if you want to have you do need to have two separate papers, but you could use as a way to write the idea of comparison. So you could say that your earthworks project, the way you're describing it, a way that makes it easier for you to describe it, would be to compare it to something else. You could compare it to some of the examples that we saw on the assignment page, or you could compare it to some other thing that we might be very familiar with. So comparison or contrast is a way that you could approach that. In both the totem project and the earthworks project, we have we have a separate but very specific thing you're trying to deal with. And the totem pole, it's about totem, it's about the symbolic nature of this thing that has to be vertical and taller than you. It could be in any process, of course, but but what it did have to have is a storytelling symbolic nature to it. The last one, of course, it's all about natural object or earthworks, any size, but the symbolic storytelling aspect is very, very important. So make sure you have that covered. I was talking earlier about going in and out of the process to be able to reflect on what that storytelling aspect is so that you can push it as far as you can. So those are the things that you need to have addressed in the paper that you do. Okay. I don't think anybody here has this issue, but and Priscilla pointed out that I didn't have the link active on the final for the earthworks. It is active now. So make sure that you, does anybody have any questions about how to submit, upload images? Okay, all right. And anything in progress, some of you have done that, some I haven't seen, but anything in progress helps me to comment back for you. So in the drafts part of the earthworks one. Anything that I've commented on the totem project that you still want to revisit or modify, you can do that right up to the end, that's fine. Okay, so I think that's all my little summary here. Did anybody have another question that came up while we were talking? Okay, well, I'll post our video here again on the assignment page if you want to relook at anything that we talked about. Okay. Alrighty then. Stay safe, and I will talk to you guys later. All right. Okay. Bye-bye.